All right. Well, let's start with what is your why for competing in HYROX? Why do you do it?
Uh, for me, like I've always said that for such a small word, that word means so much. And I guess more so in fitness than in anything else. Because when I used to work in a gym, like 99% of the people that used to come into the gym, it was like, why are you here? And it was always get fit and lose weight. It was such a generic answer. And I would always been someone to kind of delve a little bit deeper into their why. And sometimes it kind of takes like three or four more questions to get three or four layers deep and it hits them in the heart. Now, I guess my why doesn't hit me in the heart like it does with some people, but it gives me an opportunity to do something that I want to do for me. Now, being in the industry for as long as I've been in, I've always been someone that does stuff for other people, but I've never done something for me. So when I saw this and I thought that I could be quite good at it, it was something that I could get my own teeth into. I could train for it myself, and I could do something to be proud of myself. I think that probably is my why for doing what I'm doing.
Okay. All right. Awesome. You mentioned like been in the industry for how long you've been. So how long has that been? Like you've been a personal trainer for how long?
I got my first day in the industry was the 20th of November 2005, so it'll be 19 years this November.
Wow. Wow. And what's your sporting background? So before HYROX, what have you been doing in the many years you've been alive?
Right, mate, I'm only like 6 months older than you. um, Football was always my sport. My dad played football for a good good level. I got into football through Cubs and Beavers, like a lot of people did back in the days, and we had a really good team actually. And then my dad and a couple of other people set up a local team. The guy that founded it was or still is, an avid West Ham fan, and the football club was called Tilgate Hammers. So Tilgate's the area where we live, and obviously like Hammers is the West Ham nickname. So I started playing football from probably about 7 or 8, and played 20 years of football, like up to county level. Done all right, was fairly good, but then I had two bad ankle ligament injuries in probably couple of years of each other. And back then, I just started in the industry. I was self-employed back at the time, and it was hard for me to demonstrate exercises on crutches. So I retired at 28. On top of that, played some tennis. I'm fairly good at tennis. Like never had any coaching, but I'm okay at tennis. It's like a sport that, looking back at now, that I wish I did more of, and maybe wish I had more coaching of. But it's always, yeah, football's always been predominantly my main sport.
What was your position in football?
I started in goal, and then I remember once we lost 10-1. So that was that was the end of that. And then I went up front, and I think I was top scorer for 2 years running. And then as I got older and as I played higher, I kind of come back more. So in my teenage years, I used to play on the wing because I was quite quick. But then playing county football, I played left back, and I quite enjoyed playing left back, to be honest, because I could see what was in front of me.
Did you have quite a good engine? Would you say like is that where like your ability in HYROX comes from, like from the football training?
Yeah, I'd say so. I was always one of the fittest. I was always one of the ones that come out on top of like any testing work. Um, I used to play wing back quite a lot because again I was very kind of like fit, and I'd always been able to get up and get back as well. And I've always said it, like I've always had like this kind of freakishly good level of fitness. And if I can match my running with my freakishly good level of fitness, then I really believe that I can do something pretty good in HYROX. I just
What's
need to keep working on my running.
Do you remember how much you were training football wise, like for those years? Was it? I mean, some people would like train once a week and then play at the weekend, or was it more like 3 times a week type thing?
When I was at college, I remember I think Mondays I used to play under 18 football. Tuesday and Thursday I trained county like football. Wednesday I used to play football for the college. Friday it was a night off. Saturday was senior football, like county football, and then Sunday I used to play pub football. So I was playing football like 6 days a week. No
Yeah.
injuries, felt amazing, and like my recovery again was great. I think now if I was to play like one half of football, I probably wouldn't able to walk for like 4 days afterwards.
Those first few games of the season were always like terrible for how I felt after. But it's like that.
Yeah,
The reason I asked that about training is like I think some people come into HYROX and then train a lot, but expect to be able to compete at the highest level. But if they've not been training 5 days a week at football and playing a couple of games at the weekend for like years and years of their life, or doing something similar to that, like they're playing catch up for like 20 years in a way.
100%. And I look at the runners in HYROX like now. I look at like the people that have ran all of their lives, and that's where they are compared to where I am in my running. And I've always said like you're fit for what you train for. So now I'd say I'm kind of conditioned to do HYROX events and conditioned to do like hybrid training, but I wouldn't be conditioned to play football. But back then, as I said, like I could play five-a-sides, I could play like football 5, 6, 7 times a week, and I'd be okay at it. But it's relative fitness, isn't it? And you can't expect to come into the sport of HYROX having never done one and not had a lot of running in the bank, and then all of a sudden go out and run a sub 60, sub 70 in a HYROX race. It's just like it's very rarely is going to happen, is it?
Yeah. So we're recording this at the start of September 2024. It's like almost 3 months since the World Championships. What does that period look like for you? Like I know you race a lot during the season, and we'll talk about that in a bit. But what's off season like for you? Is it fairly standard, or is it a dramatic difference?
This season's been really different because I remember like the first season after Vegas, like I remember I got back from Vegas on the Tuesday. On the Friday, I flew out to Morocco and I had a week out there just doing nothing, like just wanted to kind of disconnect and just wanted to just have some time out to myself. I got back from Morocco and then I went out to Bali. But Bali was the start of like a pre-season training camp for me. I wanted to kind of have a little bit of altitude training and just wanted to enjoy being away. Last year after Manchester, I remember I took 5 full weeks away from the gym. Like didn't go near the gym for 5 full weeks. I ran a little bit, played a bit of tennis, swam a lot, walked a lot, thoroughly enjoyed it. Whereas this season, I didn't go away. I didn't stay away from the gym, but I did more training that I wanted to do as opposed to training that now I feel that I need to do. So I wouldn't say I'm as refreshed as I have been in other seasons, just because I haven't taken the time away. But touch wood, I feel all right. Like I'm itching to get going. Like I do race a lot, but I feel that I'm in a good place now. I feel that I could race this weekend if there was a race this weekend, but it just gives me that extra time to get ready for my first race at the beginning of November.
So if your first race is beginning in November, when will you start to get more specific, like HYROX wise? Is it a little bit more general at the moment, and you're going to get into wall balls and burpee broad jumps and sled pushes? Like, are you already there yet, or are you going to get more specific soon?
I've just started it. I went to a class the other day, and I think I've done about 160 odd wall balls in that class, and it was the first time that I've done a wall ball since Nice, and it was just like, oh, this this is a bit different. I don't remember this feeling. So yeah, I haven't done a lot of certain movements. I've kind of got back into the sled work over the last few weeks. My running feels quite good at the moment. I've done a lot of strength training, which I don't like doing. Like my background's always been HIIT training. Like I love swinging a kettlebell. I love doing like conditioning work, but having to kind of slow the tempo down and do these strength training sessions, it's not something that I enjoy, but I have enjoyed doing it this summer because I've wanted to do it as opposed to having to need to do it.
Mm-hmm. What is if we look at like your training week, do you know like what your running mileage might be of kilometers per week that you're doing?
It's extremely different to the majority of people that you have on this show. I remember last year between March and Nice, I was probably running once a week. Like I had a niggle in my knee. It was nothing that was causing me issues. Like it never affected my race. It never affected my performances. I was still getting the times that I wanted to get, but I just couldn't run a lot. And I used the bike. So I would say at the moment, like running wise, between like 30 and 40k a week, and I can manage that. And that's a combination of like steady running, intervals, compromise running. But I am doing like 4 or 5 good solid 45 to 90-minute cycles a week, and that I think that's made such a difference for me.
You think like you think the bike is a useful tool for a HYROX athlete, do you?
I do 100%, yeah. Because again, because I'm new to it. Like, it's a new sport, isn't it? Like, HYROX is still a new sport. Yes, we're in the 7th season, but it's like 3rd year in the UK. We've been coaching now for just under 2 years, so I'm still learning a lot about the sport as well. But yeah, I do feel that cycling has played such a big part for me, and I've had some competitions over the summer by not doing a lot of running and cycling, and the results have still been pretty good. Like, I think there's been one race that I've done all summer where I've finished outside the top 3. So again, that kind of tells me that I'm doing something all right.
Mm. And you said like it's vastly different to a lot of people to come on this show, but actually there's a wide range of approaches. And if I think to like talking to like Sandy and Alex Ronkovic, like I think they're fairly similar in their running mileage per week, and they use the bike a lot. I think Hunter uses the bike a lot. I think
Yeah.
they like. I think a lot of their running is quite specific and high intensity, and then they slow it down on the bike, and like maybe avoid junk mileage. Whereas others, I think, maybe more on the women's side, that they are doing a lot more mileage. But yeah, there's a variety of approaches, but I don't think yours is massively different to some of the top people in the sport. You know.
No, and I think, like, going back to what you said there, like with Alex and Sandy about their running, like I'm someone that much prefers like speed work as opposed to like the steady, I call them in brackets like boring runs, because I'm not from a running background. I still find them tough, like mentally. I could sit on a bike for 90 minutes like I did on Sunday, and it was fine. Like, I coasted through it. But I'd prefer to go and swing a kettlebell for an hour than go for like a steady run. I'm one of those people, but I know it's something that I've got to do. And I know it has helped me. Like, make no mistake about it, like getting these runs down and slowing these runs down has helped me with performance over the last couple of years for sure.
Okay. Let's talk about your races. So you're one of the you've raced more than almost anybody in the world in HYROX. How many races are you up to at the moment?
39.
39. All right. What why is that? Is that just because you enjoy it? You think it's good for your performance? What's the main reason?
I do enjoy it. Yeah, I think you've got to enjoy it. I know, like, it never looks like that from the photos that I share, and like the photos that I share are the best ones that I share. So the ones that I don't share look even worse. And I know, like, every time I'm running, especially, I'm just in a whole heap of pain. But I do enjoy it. Like, I love the buzz about it. I love going to different cities and countries and venues and locations. I love meeting up with people. I guess I'm in a fortunate position now through racing a lot and through what we've done and through social media, that I could probably go to like any race around the world now and I'd recognize someone or someone would recognize me. So yes, I do enjoy it. But the other thing, and I don't know if this is a good thing, for me it fills a void. Like, weekends for me, if I'm not doing anything, are so boring because I'm just like on my own. If I've got a weekend where I'm doing something or I'm seeing someone or I've got something planned, absolutely fine. But if I've got like a weekend or multiple weekends in a row where I've got nothing to do, I just get so bored. And sometimes I do look back at it and think, yeah, maybe I did race as much as I did to fill a void.
Yeah, yeah, I can see that. Especially like during the off season where there's been no races and like you're almost itching to do something over the weekends, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
I mean, over
but
the summer, I did like 3 races in 4 weeks just because I wanted something to do.
what's your recovery like? Do you have any special tips for recovery to be able to race that often and sometimes like multiple weeks in a row? Does it take a lot out of you? You got any special tips that you found for recovery?
I remember the first race that I did in Birmingham in October 2021, and it was so different. Like, preparation was so different to what it is now. I remember getting up to Birmingham on the Friday. I remember having like burger and chips like covered in like ketchup on the Friday night. I had 4 glasses of wine because I just thought, well, what, like, how hard is this going to be? Waking up the following morning, breakfast was included in the hotel package, so I had a full fry up. I wore the trainers that I wear for everyday life, for walking, for training. So there was the grip on it was like ridiculous compared to now. Um, I just didn't really think about it. And I remember I struggled to walk out of the building on that same day. Like I sat down in the afternoon after the race and I really struggled to get up. And I know like it took me probably 4 days to be able to walk again. Whereas I look at now and it's like 2 beetroot juice shots every morning the week of a race, 2 beetroot juice shots in the morning of the race. I have those cherry Regan like my preparation is so different. Like I've got a pair of trainers that I only wear for race day. I've got a pair of trainers that I'll just run in. I've got a pair of trainers that I do my compromise stuff in. So I try and save the grip as much as I can. And I'm in a fortunate position now where if I race on a Saturday, I can do something on the Monday. Sometimes I am good to do like a real slow, steady run, and sometimes I'm good enough to do a cycle. Sundays I tend to not do anything. Again, like when I look at like the elites and they're back out running at a fairly decent pace on the Sunday, I think Jesus, like that's good going. Whereas Sunday for me, I just like to do nothing. Just like to soak it all up, like reflect on what I've done like the previous day. But yeah, I mean, recovery wise has always been quite good for me. Again, I don't know if that's because of years and years of conditioning and hit training and kettlebell training, but I wouldn't say I do anything differently. I switch off a lot more. So I've got back into a routine now where I try to be off my phone at like 8:30, 8:45 in the evening, lights out just after 9, really. And I've got back into that. I wouldn't call it selfish mode, but where I'm looking after myself, and anything that kind of comes in late in the evening, I'll pick up in the following morning because I need to now start thinking about what I need to do for me this season.
Yeah. One thing I've observed with you is I think you value your sleep like really highly, more than
Yeah,
maybe other people. And I think that I mean sleep's everyone's aware of it, but it's actually underappreciated in terms of recovery and like adaptations and
yeah.
everything. Yeah.
I try and get a minimum of 7 hours a night. At the moment, it's between 7 and 8, and I can't remember the last time I got less than 7. So I never wake up in the morning and think, oh my god, I feel absolutely wrecked. I can sleep again for 2 hours. Like this morning, I set my alarm for 5, and I was awake by 20 to 5 because I went to bed just before 9 last night, and I just thought, well, I might as well get up now. So I was in the shower and I like was out walking at 5 past 5 this morning.
I think I saw on social media the other day you've got an aim to get to 100 races. First to get to 100 races.
Yeah, that was something that I kind of said to myself. Like, I think it was in like the first season. I don't think I said it to anyone else. And then I remember like when they like my protein asked about like any kind of random facts or quotes or whatever. And I just looked at it, and I think it was Gary Rothwell commented on the other day, and he was like, "Why that? Like, why is that your goal?" And I look at like the first one that I did when I was in a whole heap of pain, but then I look back like what I've had to overcome like the years before with like two knee arthroscopies in the space of 66 days. I had a really badly torn calf, like 80% tear. So I look at like what I've had to come back from injuries, and I remember like when I had the knee injuries, I honestly thought to myself, "Well, there's no way I'm going to be able to squat again. No way I'm going to be able to lunge again. Absolutely no way I'm going to be able to run again." And I think like looking at these races now, like as you know, and as everyone else knows, they're hard work. Like regardless of how long it takes you to do it, and regardless of like what level you're at, and whether you're doing a singles, a doubles, or a relay, relatively they're all hard work. So I just think like to be able to reach that 100 races is going to be like such an amazing achievement. And I just look back at my life and think to myself, do you know what? Like I've done good here.
Mm.
Like I've done something pretty good here.
You mentioned those injuries, and like, what do you feel you do differently now to maybe what you were doing like before those injuries that's helping you like race so often, relatively injury free? Are there any changes that you think you've made to your training or your lifestyle that have helped that?
I just think I listen to my body more. Like, I don't know about you, but when I was younger, it was a case like if I had an injury, it was a case of, oh well, it'd be all right, just work through it. Whereas now, and again, I have been lucky with injuries. Like, I haven't had to pull out of any races that I've done, even though there's been a few occasions where the week of the race, I've had an issue with my back and I've had an issue with my knee, where I honestly thought that I wouldn't be able to race. And these were both HYROX races. And I went and saw like my his physio, and he worked his magic, and I was able to race. So I just think now that if I've got something on my program and my body's not feeling it, I'll adjust it. Or if I'm doing something that requires me to go heavier and I don't feel that I've got it in me, then I just won't. Like, I'll pull back and I'll listen to my body more. But again, like I've changed like my diet around, like with your help. Um, I eat foods now that I feel that I need to eat, that's going to help me for HYROX specifically. Um, I'm taking certain supplements that I feel are going to help me specifically for HYROX. I still enjoy my wine. Like, I've always kind of been a big advocate of like drinking like good wine. So I still try and like, I probably have a drink like once a week now. But I think it's just the lifestyle as well. It's, as I said, like, I love getting up early to have the whole day in front of me, and that starts with the back end of the day. And for me, like, the back end of the day is always going to be the most important part, because, as I said, it sets me up for a real productive following day.
So out of all these races that you've done, you've travelled the world, been to a lot of venues. What's if I asked you the best venue that you've been to, what
In
springs to
terms
mind?
of like, in terms of aesthetics, like the look of the venue, or the most enjoyable like race weekend.
Uh, let's start with the most enjoyable race weekend.
I'd probably say Vienna, just because the whole weekend was amazing. Like, Thursday night, I didn't even know if I was going to race, because obviously Gary couldn't even make it out there. Friday morning, spoke to Tim and asked him if he would be up for racing, depending on how he felt. Saturday morning, I get a text from Tim at 4 o'clock in the morning telling me he loves me. And then we went out for a walk a few hours later, and he was still hammered. And then to race with him, like, to race with someone of that caliber, and like as my coach and as one of my best mates in the sport, is something that I'll never forget. And to be able to run the time that we did on what I felt was a fairly tough course was something that I was never gonna forget. Then we did the relay, we come second, and even that Saturday night, it was just having no plans and just having the people that we had there. I just thought the whole weekend in Vienna was just absolutely amazing, and it's a weekend that I'll never forget.
But how about for like for people listening, if they're like thinking, right, what's the best? If I want to travel to a race this season, I want to go for the overall vibe, the venue, everything like that. Is Vienna what you'd recommend, or like, I appreciate there was some like personal circumstances that made you like that one more, but what about for everyone else?
I've always enjoyed going to Spain. Like, always enjoyed going to Spain. I've done Malaga twice. Beautiful place. Like, highly recommend going to that. Good venue, good location, lovely outdoor area to warm up and to sit around. Good food, good, everything about Malaga is amazing, and I'm hoping to go back there again next year. Barcelona again, one of my favourite cities in the world, so I'm hoping to go back there. Maastricht is a little gem. Maastricht is somewhere that I didn't really even hear of before, and you only go there sometimes because of HYROX races, but a lovely weekend. Now, it takes less time to fly to Amsterdam than it does to get the train from Amsterdam to Maastricht, but once you're there, it's a beautiful little place. Like, and again, that would be a weekend that I would highly recommend people going, just to check Maastricht out. Washington was good. We had a blast in Washington.
Mm-hmm.
A long way to go for people that are tuning in from Europe, but we had an amazing time out there. Saw loads, done loads. Probably could have stayed for a good few days after that as well.
Yeah. Washington was great. Yeah, and North American Championships again there this season. So yeah, that was a great venue. What about for and this is a tough one to answer, but for a PB, what do you reckon if someone wants to go and get a fast time?
judging on last year, and it's not a place that I'd been to, but Berlin sticks out, doesn't it? I just
Oh,
think
yeah.
that if that comes about, then I'd do it. I've always done well in Maastricht again, apart from like fracturing my rib. I don't know if like, I've spoken about that before. Would have smashed the PB. Like, there probably would have been like my fastest time by a country mile. But I've always performed well in Maastricht. Washington, I thought was a good course. Like, I really enjoyed Washington. I mean, the thing with me, like, my times have been so consistent. Like, and even though I've raced a lot, I think the fastest and slowest times that I've ever done in singles is like between 90 seconds of each other. So it's really tough to kind of gauge. But yeah, for one that I've not done, Berlin probably sticks out the most. Dubai, I think, was quite a quick one. But for the ones that I've done, Maastricht was a decent run.
Okay. So like you work with our clients at Rox Lyfe, and you've written our 12-week training plan. So you've got a lot of experience working with clients over 19 years, and I put out some see if anyone had any questions. I've added in a couple myself about like training and everything like that, and racing. I mean, one that came in was like, what's the approach if you're not a natural runner? You want to coming into HYROX, you're not a natural runner. What are the most important things to focus on?
It's quite an easy one to answer that for me because I'm not a natural runner. And it's always good when I speak to our clients and I let them know that I'm not from a running background. It kind of puts them at ease knowing that I'm on that same journey as them. So we get some tests done. We kind of like get some numbers on the board just to see what they're capable of. But sometimes rather than kind of getting someone to run for a long period of time from the word go, I'll get them to run for shorter periods with like intervals. So depending on their age, depending on like their experience, depending on like injuries or niggles or past history that they've had, that could be their first one could, for example, be like a 30-minute run, but 8 minutes is steady and a 2 minutes of that is walking, just to see how it feels. Because again, like for people that have not run before and you say to them, well, just go out and do a 30 minutes, 30 minutes is a long time to run when you've not run for a long period of time. So I'll break it down. Sometimes it's like even lower than that. So sometimes it'll be a 4-minute run with a 1-minute walk, and we'll repeat that 6 times for 30 minutes.
Okay, nice. And I guess going back to what we were talking about earlier is that not all the endurance work needs to be done running as well. If someone's building up like the bike and the ski and the row and whatever else, get them swimming can be useful for some people if they 100%. Haven't got the mileage, Yeah. What about
something that I gave people the opportunity over the summer as well, and we spoke earlier about the wanting to train as opposed to the needing to train. And like one of the sessions that I gave like everyone was like, choose what you want to do from the following. And I kind of gave them like a steady row, some stuff on the cross trainer, a steady cycle. If they wanted to run, then I'd let them run, but I didn't really want them doing too much running over the summer, especially if they was tired coming off the back of a big season last year. But also if they wanted to do any kind of like sporting activity that they wouldn't necessarily get the chance to do whilst they're in season, when that want switches back over to a need. So there's so much variety, isn't there, to do? And like you said, and like we've spoken about it, it doesn't always have to be running.
Yeah. We get a lot of clients that are like racing for the first time in HYROX, and a lot of them are nervous. A lot of experienced people get nervous before a race. What do you say to someone that's nervous and putting pressure on themselves and everything like that?
I spoke to a lady yesterday that's just kind of started with us, and it's her first one this season. And the message is the same. Like, you have to enjoy it. Like, you have to take, yes, it's good to have some kind of like a loose goal going into your first one, whether that's a certain time, whether that's not to walk any of it. But I think like the first one, you have to enjoy the experience. Like, you've got to soak it all in. Like, I remember going into like Birmingham on the first one, and you kind of like look around and you think to yourself, well, like, this is big. And like back then, there wasn't many people racing at all, was there? I think there was like 600 on the day. You could still get tickets on the day, but even then, you kind of walk in and you looked at it and you thought, wow, this is big. And I think like sometimes now, like, we take it for granted, don't we? Because we're so used to it. But I think if if people that have never raced before got the opportunity to go in like the night before and see it all empty, it'd be interesting to see how that affected them the following day when there was no one there, just to kind of have that 10 minutes of soaking it all in, to see like this big room that's all set out where there's no noise, there's no adrenaline. Because like when you do go in there in the morning, I remember like Glasgow sticks out for me. I went into Glasgow just after, might have just been before 8. I don't know. It's either just before 8 or just after 8. And the noise at that time of the morning was absolutely deafening. And it stayed like that the whole way through the weekend. It's probably the best atmosphere that I've ever seen at HYROX race. That was Birmingham like 2 years ago. But yeah, going back to the question, like you have to enjoy it, because I think if you put too much pressure on yourself and things don't go your way, it could potentially like ruin your whole HYROX experience. I mean, I went into my one not knowing anything about it, never saw a video, didn't realize like really what it entailed, but I went in there thinking I'm just going to have some fun with this. And then once you've done your first one, you've got your data, haven't you? So it's so much easier then to sit down, to work through what needs to be worked on. But yeah, the biggest bit of advice I can give to anyone that's never done one before is to take every single bit of pressure off yourself and just enjoy it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think there's, I'm going to ask a question about sims in a minute, but I think the danger is that some people go and do a sim at the gym and like that's not necessarily even set up right for a HYROX, and then they get a time in mind. They're like, all right, I can do 70 minutes or whatever, and then like that's their expectation for race day. It's like adds that pressure, but yeah, just you just not got to have a time in mind, I think, for that first race. Yeah.
No, and that's what I say. Like, it's good to have a loose time, but if it's a few minutes over either side, it is what it is.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
again, like adrenaline will play a factor. Um, the noise will have a factor. The heat will have a factor. Even like going out from the start line, you'll have this goal in your head of how fast that you want to run, but then you see people shoot off and you start doubting yourself, thinking, "Oh my god, am I coming out too slow?" And all of a sudden, then your whole race plan's been ruined on that first run because you're running someone else's race.
Yeah. Yeah. With I just mentioned about sims. Like a question came in, like, how do you feel about like race sims in training? Like, when do you do them? Do you do them? Do you do the full whack? Or like, do you scale it down? What's your approach in general for most people?
What, from a coaching point of view, or for me as an athlete?
From a coaching perspective, like, what would you recommend? Do you think like everyone should do a sim 2 weeks before, like, or what?
Yeah, so I do like sims because, but then sometimes I'll do like compromised running sim work, and I still to this day think that the compromised running sessions are one of the most underutilized training sessions in a program, and it's where so many people fail is because they'll either be great at running or they'll be strong, but they're not used to the transitional work. So I tend to I tend to do some sim work 10 to 11 weeks out to give them some kind of indication of where they're going to be. Then they'll have like another one about 6 weeks out, and then they'll have that final big push 2 weeks out. Now, again, depending on who I'm working with, the running might be a little bit longer than the 1,000 meters. The running might be a little bit shorter than the 1,000 meters. And again, depending on experience, age, and who I'm working with, I might adjust the distances. Plus, it depends if they're doing a doubles. Like the doubles event, I'll keep it short and sharp. So there's no point giving someone like 1,000 meters on the ski erg, for example, if they're doing a double. So what I might do is kind of like keep the runs relatively high, but then I might say, I don't know, I'm just thinking right off the top of my head, it might be like a 200-meter ski into 20 meters of burpee broad jump twice, and then go back onto the run, and then come back in and do like a short 20 meters on the sled, 15 wall balls, do that twice, go back into a run. So there's no point really like giving too many doubles participation, like the full run through, because that's not what they're going to be doing in the race.
Mm-hmm. Okay. What station would you add to HYROX to make it better suited to you?
Oh, that's a good one. Kettlebell swings I love that exercise. For me, is one of my favorite exercises, or even like snatching, like dumbbell or kettlebells, because I've been big into kettlebell work. I was one of the first I think I was one of the first 12 people in the UK to be accredited with a kettlebell qualification. So I've been using kettlebells since 2005. So yeah, swings, snatches, or like overhead press work, like shoulder work's always been one of my like strongest elements to training.
Okay. Um, you're a you're a Newcastle United fan.
I am, yes.
Would you rather never run a HYROX again, or only be able to run a HYROX in a Sunderland shirt?
I don't think I could wear a Sunderland shirt. I really don't. I think I'll just have to come and support you. No, I honestly, I know. I would not be able to wear a Sunderland shirt. Absolutely not. No.
Okay. You've also earned the name Pop Tart Paul for your love for Pop Tarts.
Yeah.
Would you rather eat 15 Pop Tarts before the next race or drink 2 litres of custard?
I don't like custard.
Do you not? You don't like
No.
custard?
So
Mate.
again, I've always been one of these people, and some people call me weird, but with a dessert, you've got to have hot with cold. So I'll love like a sticky toffee pudding or apple crumble or anything like hot, but then like with some vanilla ice cream. So
Okay.
that's an easy one. But then do you know what? I haven't actually had a Pop Tart for months. I reckon this year alone, like 2024, I think I've had Pop Tarts like on one occasion.
Mate.
Changed man.
that's my nutrition advice coming through there.
Yeah, it is. I've actually listened to
you. Would you rather win your age group at the World Championships or be selected for the UK relay team?
Win my age group. I just think to be known as a world champion, I just think it's the greatest achievement that any individual or doubles athlete could ever achieve. And I think, like, again, I take for granted that I've represented my country like 3 times in 3 back-to-back world championships, and I always kind of look back at the Vegas one, and I still don't think I gave it time to sink in. It was just a case of, well, we're going to Vegas. But for me, like, out of all 3 races that I've done, like in the worlds, for me, the biggest thing that I'll never forget is when they played the American national anthem. And I remember, like, we was kind of here, and the Americans had this stand here, and the music started playing, and like everyone turned to their left, and I kid you not, at exactly the same time, you see every single American put their hand on their chest, and it was just it blew my mind. Like, it absolutely blew my mind. So yeah, that's an easy one for me. Okay. Plus, Sandy would never pick me anyway.
Well, they're the champs now. They're the champs. Last one. Would you rather train for a HYROX without access to a sled or without being able to practice wall balls?
I would probably say without the sled, because the sleds have always been quite strong for me. Like, I've always done them in a relay. Even in Bali, like, I had no access to sled work at all. Like, this was this like the time that I've just recently come back from over Christmas. So I didn't do any sled work for five weeks, and then kind of landed on the Thursday, flew out to Amsterdam on the Friday, raced on the Saturday in Maastricht in the doubles pro division, and had no issues whatsoever. So yeah, wall balls have always been like a love-hate for me. Like, I've got to a stage now where I'm okay. Like, I'm not brilliant, but I'd say that I can get into the 60s, like high 60s, without breaking now. So I guess one of my goals or targets should be this season to try and do 100 unbroken. But it's definitely an exercise that I think that I need to continue working with.
If someone's listening that doesn't have access to a sled, what would you recommend training wise?
Like, Zercher lunges are good. Deadlifting, whether it's double like both legs or single leg deadlifting, any kind of like strength work really, like lower leg strength work, or again like heavy cycling. You know, I cycled a lot in Bali, and again, like, my legs feel so good at the moment. Like, they feel so strong. I had a sled workout the other day, and it's the first time I'd kind of loaded it up. I had like 180 kilos on there, and it felt all right. Like, I had 160 for the pull, and it felt all right. So again, like going back to bike work, I honestly think that the bike could be so many people's like secret weapon this season.
Mm-hmm. I know. I remember talking to Dylan Scott ages ago. Like he's not one of the biggest guys in HYROX by any means, but he pushes that pro sled very well, and I think he credits like bike work with like being a reason for that as well. Yeah. Um, we from a mindset perspective, in during a race when things are getting tough, what do you think about? Where does your mind go?
Do you know what? I don't know. Like, I wouldn't say it goes anywhere. Like for me, I always go out hot. Like everyone knows that. I always go out hot, and it's after the sled push that I relax. Like the first two runs, like the ski and the sled push, for me are tough. And I always doubt myself. Like I'll always say to myself, I've done it again. I'm not going to be able to keep this up. This is horrendous. And then run three, I kind of settle down, and that middle section for me is quite it's quite calming. Like I don't really think about anything. I kind of just zone off, switch off, and just get through it. And then I come out of like the farmers carries, and then I think to myself, oh my god, like this is going to be tough now. You've got lunges and wall balls. But in terms of like where my mind goes, I don't know. I think I'd be lying if I said it goes somewhere or I think about something. It's yeah, I don't know. Like I wouldn't know really.
Okay. Okay. All right. Last few questions that we finish up on now. What's been your best sporting experience?
I'd have to say representing my country, or two actually, representing my country in a World Championships and breaking the relay world record for the first time. Like for me, those two things like really stand out above anything else that I've ever achieved in my life.
Yeah. Yeah. What about your toughest sporting experience?
Probably a HYROX race again. Nice was tough for me. Like Nice was really tough. It's the only race that I've ever done where I had to stop and get a drink, like in the rock zone. Like I had major overheating issues, and we done all right. Like we got a fairly decent time, but there was times where I honestly didn't think I was going to finish. Like I didn't get to the level where some people sadly did and had to get like medical attention and anything else like that. But that was probably one of like the toughest sporting like experiences that I've ever had to do, and I just felt really really rough afterwards for quite some time.
Do you think in hindsight you'd do anything different like before the race if you were going to do it again? Like would you hydrate? Were you underhydrated? Do you think or
No,
anything
like
like
my
that?
water intake's always been like I don't drink anything else really. I've always kind of made a joke of it that I only drink like water and wine. Don't drink tea or coffee. Don't drink like juices. So I probably get through at least 4 liters of water a day. I'll have like two electrolyte drinks a day, like regardless. So I wouldn't say it was that. I don't know. Again, like I took my top off before I'd started the race. That's something that I've never done before either. I don't know. I just found it extremely hot in there. Um, so yeah, in terms of like changing anything, probably not really.
Okay. What's the best piece of advice someone's given you or you've discovered while training for HYROX?
Tim, um, Tim said something to me like when we started really, and it's something that I've stuck by and truly believe, and it's something that I pass on. And he said to me, he goes, if you can learn to run slow in training, you'll be able to run fast in racing. And when before I started HYROX training and before I kind of got a coach, the very rare times that I did go for a run, I'd just run. Like I didn't look at any data, I didn't look at any like zones I was in, I didn't look at what my heart rate was. If I was going to go out and run for 30 minutes, I'd run for 30 minutes. If I was going to go and do a 5K, I'd go and do a 5K. And I remember like when I used to start using like my zone, when I was like back in like before all this stuff, I'd get like annoyed if my average wasn't like 80% or over. I'd be quite like it really irritate me. But now it's so important that when I'm like I always have my app open like, on a treadmill, and I love being in like the blue zone now. Whereas before, it honestly like it would really wind me up if I'd look at it and be like, "Fucking hell, I didn't work hard enough." It like really did get to me. But it's an amazing tip that that I've really kind of like taken on board, and I truly believe.
Okay. All right, great. That's Tim Venich, by the way, we should say, for anyone
Yeah.
that doesn't know, one of the elite HYROX athletes. And last one, if you could plant one idea or piece of advice in the mind of everyone listening right now, it could be anything, what would it be?
If I was to kind of, if I was to take myself back to like my younger years, I wish I ran more. And the other thing that I wish I'd done more of when I was younger was like gymnastics. So that they would be like the two things that I would do. But for now, I would honestly say for people to start believing in themselves more, because I honestly believe that so many people out there have so much self-doubt and self-fear about doing something on the basis that they fear someone else would say something about what they're doing. And I just think to myself, do you know what? Like, if 2020's like taught us anything, it is that life is precious, that life goes so fast. And if you want to do something, do it. Just go out and do it. Believe in your own ability, work hard, trust the process, and just enjoy everything that you do.
All right, great. Out of interest, why do you wish you'd done gymnastics when you were younger?
Because my flexibility sometimes is about as useful as a sheet of metal. I mean, it doesn't help. Like again, football, like footballing years, tight hamstrings, everything else. But yeah, I just wish I was more flexible. I look at certain people that do certain movements, like wall balls, for example, and you see people literally get their arse to their heels, and I just think to myself, oh my god, like I'm so jealous.
All right, awesome. This has been great. What's your goals for the season, and what's your plans like race wise?
So I'm not starting until November, because October I've got a bit of a funny month. I can't really talk about it, but I've got a funny month that I need to be here. Um, Number one goal this year is to qualify for the Worlds again, and it's definitely not something that I'm taking for granted, because I honestly believe it's going to be tough. Like, it's going to be extremely tough this year. Time wise, I'd like to PB in all divisions. Really, I'd like to kind of improve on my time in the singles. I need to do another men's pro. I didn't do any men's pro last year that I feel really bad about, and Tim hates me for not doing that. I'd like to get my both improvements on men's doubles and mixed doubles down as well. And then again, like, see if I can podium, because again, like, I think any podium this year is a massive, massive achievement, like regardless of where it is. But overall goal this year, I think, like, has to be to try and qualify again and make it 4 and 4.
Yeah. All right. Awesome. Thank you for this. Where should people go if they want to follow you, find out more about you?
Just on Instagram, just on my full name, Paul Gillingham _. That's where I do most of like my stuff. I am on Facebook, but very loosely. Not on TikTok, not on Snapchat, not on LinkedIn. So yeah, Instagram's the main one that I'm on now.
Okay. And roxlyfe.com/coaching if you want to work with Paul on one of our coaching plans. And we've got 12-week training plans on the site as well.
It's probably the greatest training plan that anyone would ever use, just saying.
I don't think it's even probably. I think it's definitely. So. All right, nice one. Thank you, mate.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
Cheers.